Welcome back to the channel. It is 2025, which means it is now the 100-year anniversary of one of the greatest cartridges ever made, the legendary 270 Winchester. And in today's video, I want to show you ideal powders for 270 Winchester. There's a lot of good powders that work for this cartridge, but I want to stay away from the good powders, and I'm going to show you the best powders. If you are a hand loader and own a 270 Winchester, this is a must watch. 100 years ago, in 1925, Winchester released this cartridge. The 270 Winchester, now this is kind of debated on what the parent case really is. Either way, it's basically based off a 30-06 case, whether it's a 30-03 or 30-06, I don't really care. It's basically a 30-06 neck down to 277. What attracted people to the 270 Winchester, and to this day, is you're shooting sleek, smaller bullets than a 30-06, and it's just a flat shooting cartridge. It's a perfect deer cartridge. With certain bullet weights, it's a pretty darn good elk cartridge. And in its own way, it's pretty darn versatile. So what attracts people is that it's getting flatter trajectory than a 30-06 with less recoil. Common bullet weights, 130 grain up to 150 grain. In modern projectiles, you can shoot all the way up to 170 grain, depending on how fast your twist is. Now let's get to the meat of this topic. Let's talk about what powders you really should be using in the 270 Winchester. I think a lot of people are using less than ideal powder. Again, there's a lot of good powders for the 270 Winchester, but what I want to show you is that while this is good, this is better, I want to show you what's best for 270 Winchester. Oh boy, this is going to be a very controversial take I have, but it's an accurate one. Guys, I love Hodgdon's H4831 SC. I believe it to be probably the best magnum powder that Hodgdon makes. With that being said, it's not the right powder for 270 Winchester. I know a lot of you 270 Winchester fans love using H4831 SC. The problem is it's too slow burning. I'm going to show you that in a sec. I have here is the 150 AccuBlond. If I were to hunt elk with a 270 Winchester or 270 WSM, this would be my bullet choice. It is a relatively good BC, G1.5, and it has good sectional density. It's a tough bullet. It's heavy for this caliber. It's just a good elk hunting bullet. With that being said, even shooting a heavier 270 bullet, it still isn't the greatest choice. All right, guys, we're going to be using GRT a lot today. Now, I've put this 270 Winchester with a 24-inch barrel, so we're giving it probably the most potential and velocity that you're going to find in factory rifles. For some reason, GRT doesn't have the 150 AccuBlond, but it does have the 150 AccuBlond long range, so that's what we're going to put in it. Then we're going to use Hodgdon H4831. And please don't worry at all about how many grains I'm putting in. What we're looking for is max pressure with the velocity, load ratio, and burnt propellant. So with Hodgdon 4831 SC, we're looking at a max velocity with a 150 grain of probably 2985 to 2990. But look at that. Probably around 95% burnt propellant. And if you want the best accuracy and the lowest ESs, that's not going to do it. Now let's switch this to the 130 AccuBlond. I think most 270 Winchester owners are loading a 130 grain. We're right at 65,000 PSI with a 24-inch barrel with H4831 SC. You're looking at an estimated velocity of close to 3190. Smoking fast. But there we have it again. Really high load ratio, so it's going to be super compressed. And only 91.5% burnt propellant. Not good. Now let me show you the best powders for 270 Winchester. From 130 grain up to 150 grain, we're looking at N160. And there'll be other powders Hodgdon makes that are incredibly good. But let's go ahead and look. We're going to use a 130 grain AccuBlond with N160. Again, don't really care about this because every gun's going to be different. But we're looking at a top velocity of around 31, probably 3190. Interesting. That matches H4831SC. But the difference is we're not as compressed and we have 100% burnt propellant. So that will be much more likely. You'll have better accuracy and low ES at the exact same velocity. Up next, let me show you one of the best powders for 270 Winchester, Hodgdon H4350. Very good. Okay, so H4350. And look at that. We are over 3,200 feet per second with a 130 AccuBond. So you're probably looking at 3,210 feet per second with a 24-inch barrel. 100% burnt propellant. Let's look at one more Vihtavuori powder, N550. Even faster, 3,214 feet per second. 100% burnt propellant. Now I have to admit, I have not been perfect in picking the right powders for the right cartridges. As of like 3 months ago, I don't know what was going on in my head, but I decided to throw together N560 with a 130 AccuBond and 270 Winchester in a Model 70.
Same hole.
And at first, it shot
That's really
incredibly well.
That's a half MOA group.
Like sub half MOA. Then, 2 weeks later, I took it out with a chronograph and had someone else shoot it, and it was abysmal.
Ooh.
Okay, we're talking 2.5-inch group to a 1-inch group.
Oh, that's already a net 2-inch
and
group.
a velocity of only 2,900 feet per second with a 130 AccuBond and a 270 Winchester.
That's like a 3-inch group. That's terrible.
Not efficient at whatsoever. And I want to show you in GRT what we were getting with that load. So I believe I loaded it up with only 56 grains, which that was stupid of me. I was looking at a pressure of 43,000 PSI, super underloaded, a load ratio of 90%, and burnt propellant, almost 87%. So, sometimes I could get good groups with using too slow of a burning powder, but it was wildly inconsistent. Now, for the past 2 years, I've been messing with higher BC bullets, heavier bullets that technically aren't supposed to stabilize in a traditional 1 in 10 twist 270 Winchester. But what I've found, due to my high elevation, as I am in the Mountain West, is that it works. I'm at over 5,000 feet of elevation, and this particular load, this is a 165 AccuBond, shoots extremely well. I've loaded up my neighbor with IMAR 4350. Now, you could make an argument, this is not going to get you the best velocity with a 165 grain, but it's going to have 100% burnt propellant. And it has produced the best accuracy with the 165 ABLR. Lastly, I've been holding on to this loaded ammo for quite some time. One of my viewers kind of challenged me to see if I could get close to pressure and fit it into a 270 Winchester with N570. Now, N570 has huge kernels. This is the most compressed load I have ever loaded in a cartridge. If I had a 24-inch barrel, you're looking at a velocity of around almost 3,000 feet per second with a 165 grain, okay? Now, I have a 22-inch barrel, so I'm going to be probably around 29, 25 feet per second. I haven't shot it because I'm a little scared to. But you guys let me know down in the comments. Should I give it a whirl